last time we talked, things were pretty messy, but I feel like now that it's June, the Texans, they do some fun things in the draft. They get C.J. Stroud. They trade for Will Anderson. They hire D'Amico Ryans. I'm hoping that from a national perspective, the summer bods looking a little bit better than the, not so good looking team that this was at the end of the year when, of course, they somehow beat the Indianapolis Colts, which also was a sad day.
I was watching that game live. I assigned myself that game just for the chance of the mess that it turned into, and I'm screaming and yelling in the newsroom about as loud as like I have for any game all year when Davis Mills completes that touchdown through the arms of the Colts. And now we're here, and it all worked out. C.J. Stroud's amazing. Maybe it didn't work out because they had to give up next year's first to come back to get Will Anderson, but they're so much more compelling. That's all I'm asking for. I thought, Paul, you might remember, they would get their over win total last year, that they'd be a little better than people thought, and I was wrong about that. And this year, I'm not as confident that they'll get their over. I think if I had to pick, I would pick that because it's such a young team. But more importantly, I just am looking forward to watching them play football. And I do think a good offensive line, a good system, and a good running back is a hell of a way to break in a rookie quarterback. So to me, C.J. Stroud is a lot more box office than people give him credit for. And I'm just looking forward to watching them play, and that's the first time in a few years.
I think we're all on the same page on that one. Please note Davis Mills, though. Davis Mills has been working with the ones, a little bit of no DAs, but at least what I'm telling myself right now, it's fine. This is going to change by training camp, by the start of the regular season. It's not going to be like the first game of the year against the Jaguars back in 2017 where Tom Savage was the starting quarterback and then they brought in Deshaun Watson. No way. That's not going to happen. But I'm with you.
Man, I forgot about that. Oof. I totally forgot when that happened.
He got killed. He got killed in that game. And yeah, the year at least was fun for a little bit of time before Watson tore his ACL. Now, to take a look at what you just said a moment ago, how you're a little bit nervous about maybe taking the over on the Texans. I'm in the same way. I think we're all a little bit gun shy. But if you take a look around the AFC South, I think there's really only one team that we're looking at as a potential really good team. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars. But a lot of it, I think, has to do with the quarterback pedigree in Trevor Lawrence. How much better do you think the Jaguars will be than last year? I asked that question because I get the buzz around Lawrence. I felt like he played pretty well, all things considered, against Kansas City in that playoff game. But this was a 9-8 football team last year. And I hate that we're just forgetting that Trevor Lawrence threw 4 first-quarter interceptions in that game against the Chargers, who charged their way through the rest of the game. Like, I get it. Lawrence did bounce back, and he deserves a lot of credit for bouncing back. But that happened, and it feels like this offseason, Greg, a lot of people are trying to push him into the same conversation as Patrick Mahomes, as Josh Allen, as Joe Burrow, as all the other great young quarterbacks in the league. And I'm not ready to do that, and I'm not really ready to do that with the Jaguars either, looking at them as a serious team in the AFC.
I totally am with you. In fact, I don't think there is a great team in the AFC South. I think it's the easiest division in football. I think the schedule is very favorable out of Division II. And to me, if I'm power ranking the AFC teams, just roster and what I expect out of the team this year, if all the schedules were equal, I don't think Jacksonville's in my top 6 or 7. I just think the North and the East, and certainly the Chiefs and even the Chargers are better. They might be 8-9. I think they're a middle of the road team who didn't really address their issues on defense. They pushed so hard with all the spending they had an offseason ago that they couldn't really do it this offseason, and I get that. That's sort of how you team build. You can't do it every offseason. I love Doug Peterson as a head coach. Their offensive line's okay. I think it'll be a good offense. I think it'll be a really bad defense. I think if they were in the AFC North, I would pick them to come third. Same with the AFC East. So I am not totally banking on them running away with this division. It would not surprise me at all if it's just a bunch of teams closer to 500, in the middle of November.
Gregg Rosenthal, the Around the NFL podcast, the NFL Network, hanging with us on the HR&P guest line. Paul Galancho, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Okay, we're all wondering where DeAndre Hopkins is going to end up it feels like there are a lot of tentacles reaching in a bunch of different directions from Camp Hopkins. I don't know if anybody wants those tentacles to come near them. I know that we heard that he's open to a return to the Texans. Doesn't really seem like that would make sense when you got a first-year head coach trying to install like a everybody's on the same level mindset, especially with Hopkins' track record of never showing up in practice here in Houston back in the day, and some comments that he made about Bob McNair, whether fair or unfair. I don't know how Cal's going to feel about those comments. You also have like rumors about the New England Patriots, which seems weird given, again, Bill O'Brien being there. We've heard about the Cleveland Browns. I know Amari Cooper has endorsed maybe them bringing in Hopkins, and that Deshaun Watson has brought it up as well. The Brandon Beane with the Bills. Where do you think Hopkins is going to end up?
I would still pick the Bills if I had to choose one. It's less about money, and I think for Hopkins, and more about, respect. He doesn't want to be looking at himself or the rest of the league to look at him as a guy that's like signing for 1 year, $6 million, which might be the type of offers that he's getting from the Chiefs and the Bills. But I think there isn't that huge offer out there from a bad team anyways. And eventually he might just settle on, look, I can remake my career. I can win ball games in big spots, and I can play with a great young quarterback, and he'll just have to accept lesser money. And to me, Kansas City and Buffalo, which, I have reached out and sort of, snooped around. There is a level of interest. If he's willing to play for a lesser amount of money, the Chiefs and the Bills are happy to take him on. And so to me, it just makes too much sense because I don't see the mediocre team out there that's like the Panthers or something that's suddenly going to offer him Odell Beckham money. I think that Beckham contract that he signed with the Ravens is probably getting in the way of this Hopkins deal right now.
Yeah, talking about that contract, if you had to pick between the two, one of them is on your fantasy team this coming year. One of these guys is going to have a more productive year. Hopkins or Odell Beckham Jr., who are you picking?
Ooh, I'd love to know what team Hopkins is on. Pure just player, I think I would take Beckham right now. But the fact that he's on the Ravens and the uncertainty, I think I would take Hopkins for fantasy. I mean, there's not a huge difference. I do think Hopkins has taken a step down, and that's a big reason why he hasn't signed yet. Like, he's going to be a great contested catch receiver, I think, for the rest of his life, but he's not that same true number one guy. And that's why I really love the Buffalo fit. I mean, him playing next to Stephon Diggs on the other side as kind of the X there with the single coverage, I think that's perfect.